In 1990, Compile released two puzzle games where you drop pieces down a well in two-part chunks and rotate them. Both were released on Nintendo platforms. Neither did particularly well, but they stuck by one of those puzzle games, re-releasing it a few times, and it became a massive success, effectively taking over the company. This is the other puzzle game they released in 1991. Gorby no Pipeline Daisakusen was released about 6 months before Puyo Puyo, and I'm inclined to say that this is probably the game that inspired it. Not that it's a good puzzle game, in fact it's very deeply flawed. But to me it feels like the kind of thing that they'd sit around the studio going, well that didn't work, how could we improve the concept? And then through iteration wound up with Puyo Puyo. The developers and programmers for Gorby no Pipeline Daisakusen are the exact same team that would develop Puyo Puyo. The titular Gorby is of course Mikhail Gorbachev, then president of the Soviet Union who would be deposed in a coup in August of that year. Gorbachev was a very popular figure internationally, as he spent much of the 80s working to dismantle a lot of the totalitarian aspects of Soviet society. Oddly enough, this is not the only game that Gorbachev starred in. There's another puzzle game called Ganbare Gorby that was released for the Sega Game Gear. The game Gorby no Pipeline Daisakusen has the player building a pipeline to export oil and natural gas from the region. A concept that was kicked around but didn't actually start development until the 21st century. For some reason in this game, you're piping water around rather than oil. Your goal on every stage is to complete pipelines linking the left and right hand sides of the screen. All rows on the right hand side have an output, while as you progress in the game, rows on the left hand side may or may not have an input. The water always flows from the right to the left, though it doesn't make that much of a difference which way you construct things. The one place where that does matter is that you get a game over if all of the pipes on the right hand side are blocked off. Pieces of pipeline drop in two linked blocks, and hitting A and B rotate those around. Blocks can either turn or be straight, and straight pieces are much rarer than curved ones. If you complete a pipeline across the stage, then all the blocks enclosed by that pipeline turn blue. If you've enclosed blue blocks in your pipeline, then those are worth bonus points. For the first loop of the game, you have to complete 2 pipelines to clear a stage, and every loop after that adds an additional pipeline. There are 3 items besides pipeline pieces that can drop from the top of the screen very rarely. Like, once every other level you might see one rarely. The drill will destroy the entire column of blocks below where it hits. It's the only way that you can unblock a pipeline. If the water drop lands on a square directly next to where the water is coming out, then it counts as a completed pipeline, and that requirement goes down by 1. The bottle, on the other hand, if it lands next to where the water is flowing out, causes 4 rows of blue blocks to push up from the bottom of the screen. That can net you a lot of points, but it can also disrupt how you're building. Completing the pipeline between Tokyo and Moscow takes 9 stages, and when you cycle back to do it again, the speed actually decreases, presumably to get you used to building an extra pipeline. And that's everything there is to playing this game. Gorbachev only appears on the box and label, so don't expect any kind of Glasnost mini-stage. While the game wasn't regarded at the time, 2022 has brought it a lot of notoriety due to the international situation regarding Russian pipelines, and the death of Mikhail Gorbachev. Though, that notoriety seems to mainly come from people mentioning how weird it is that the game exists, not anyone playing it. I doubt that anyone would want to really play this one deeply anyways. It is not a very good puzzle game. Because of the way the pieces are structured, building winds up being fairly unsatisfying. You basically have to create a whole lot of wasted space. No matter how well you build, roughly 50% of the pieces are going to be totally useless to what you're constructing. You just won't be able to rotate the block so that it can fit in a way that doesn't close off your pipes. And even when you can properly extend what you have, you'll often wind up in a situation where adding that block means you have to also add another 4. and so you let it pass you by and wait for the right piece to come along. It drags the game down a lot, and since the junk sticks around, completing a pipeline makes you go, ugh, I gotta do this again. Fortunately, Compile figured out the good bits here and made another pass at it.